We have 3 openings right now around the NFL with coaching vacancies. How many more do you assume we'll have once we get to the Monday following the final regular season game?
Yeah, my guess would be another like 3 or 4 openings. You look at the Giants, that seems pretty clear. The Jaguars, maybe the Raiders. The Cowboys are one that's up in the air if they don't make the playoffs. So there's going to be a decent amount of openings. These jobs, like on paper as of right now, the ones that we know for sure are going to be open don't really seem that appealing if you just look at them. It's a lot of teams that don't really have a quarterback, or it's a bad ownership situation or whatever it is. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason for coaching candidates like a Mike Vrabel or a Ben Johnson, who are going to be very picky with the kind of teams they want to coach. And I'm very curious to see how it plays out.
You think it's inevitable that the Giants job opens up?
I do. I think they should do a clean sweep. I get the sense that Daboll is gone, and I'm not as sure about Shane. But I don't think it ever really works when you only fire one or the other. And I don't think Shane has done a great job of building a roster that can win games. So the Giants are a very interesting one, and I'm very curious to see what people around the league think of that job, because they have some talent, and they're going to have a top 2 pick. So in theory, you could get a rookie quarterback. But I don't think Daboll is going to be back next season.
Well, the Giants job seems very desirable simply because John Mara doesn't ever want to fire anybody. He's just forced to because he keeps hiring really bad coaches. You're right. There's a lot of talent gaps on the roster, but this team's going to have a top 5 pick. They need a quarterback. They can draft a quarterback with one of those with that pick. And then, you kind of reset everything. But I don't know how John Mara can look himself in the mirror and say the Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have done enough to earn this job back unless you go back to year number 1, because it seems like they've gotten worse as time has gone on as GM and head coach.
Yeah, the thing, John Mara, I used to cover the Giants before I covered the Jets. The thing he hates more than anything is being embarrassed. And so, you look back at 2021, he had no intention of firing Joe Judge that year. And you get to the end of the season, Joe Judge has this embarrassing press conference, and then, he like kneels it on 3rd down, and everybody's making fun of them, and he fires Joe Judge because the noise was getting too loud. And it feels the same way here. He gave a vote of confidence, which I thought was kind of wild, in the middle of this season. And they're probably the worst team in the NFL. You have fans flying banners over the stadium, and that's one thing that John Mara can't stand. And I think ultimately, again, it's a different side of the same coin when it comes to Woody. At some point, John Mara needs to do a little bit of reflection, and the Giants need to do a little bit of reflection, change, the way they go about things. I think Mara does give his people more leeway to operate than maybe Woody Johnson does, but the way John Mara has operated also has not worked, because the 2 teams have been 2 of the worst in the NFL over the last decade, frankly. So,
absolutely awful. Now, we know that Bill Belichick wasn't getting any sniffs, so he had to go to college. Do you think Pete Carroll could get sniffs? Because I've heard he wants to coach again, and if there's 7 openings around the NFL, I know that old guys aren't in, but I mean, Pete was much better than Bill by the end. Could he get a sniff?
I don't see why not. I still think he's a really, really good coach. And even if you weren't going to hire him as your head coach, I think he'd be an awesome, whether it's a GM or a president of football operations, somebody to help build a culture. And to your point, he is older, but if you hear him talk or you watch him, the way he moves around, like, he's got energy of a young man. And so I still think he could be a really good coach for somebody. And if you're a team that wants an experienced coach, I don't know that you can do much better than him. If you're not looking at like Mike Vrabel, who I think is the top candidate out there, I think Pete Carroll should be under consideration if he wants to coach.
Is the Bears job the best job that's going to be open?
Yeah, I think it is. It largely, I guess, depends on what a hypothetical coach thinks of Caleb Williams, but he's a young quarterback on a rookie deal. They have talent on that defense. The main downside would be you're coming into a spot where the GM is already there, and a lot of times when you're not on the same timeline, it gets very complicated. But I think that's pretty clearly the best job to me.